Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friends, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Hi, this is Stan in Gainesville, and today we have an exciting return guest for everyone. Jim Tetlow is back.
Yay, Jim. And this is David, coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shores neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
Original flavor.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 416. And today we welcome back to the show one of our favorite designers, Jim Tetlow. Hey, how you doing, Jim?
I'm great. Thank you for having me back.
So word has it that you are hailing right now from La Jolla, California.
Yes.
Where it's beautiful. As you know, I'm in Long Beach. Not nearly as
Hoity-toity.
Nice as La Jolla. Yeah, well, you said hoity-toity. San Diego's really beautiful. That whole area is great, gorgeous. But we are enjoying just stunning weather, aren't we?
We are.
Hey, we got it today, too. We got it in Florida also today.
Well, 3 days where the humidity is below 90%. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, welcome back, Jim. It's good to have you back. And it's quite timely because we're going to be talking a lot about Showlight today. But before we get started, we have a lot of listeners who may not know everything about you, Jim, and we happen to have your bio here. So, Stan, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Jim?
I'm going to read that for sure. Mr. Tetlow is a graduate of the infamous Carnegie Mellon University and has been working as a lighting designer and consultant for television, theater, and architecture since 1975. He was the co-founder of Nautilus Entertainment Design, Inc. and is currently a principal consultant and lighting designer. His awards include a 1990 Emmy Award for the lighting of Sesame Street, a 1987 Monder Award for Courting, an original studio drama, and a 1985 Monder Award for a music video with Jim Henson's Muppets. Live television credits include the 1992 Democratic National Convention, the 1984, 1988, and 1996 Republican conventions. He is bipartisan, and Daytime Emmy Awards, the NBC Olympic Broadcast Center in Barcelona, and the Miss America pageant, and 7 years of the Miss Universe pageant. I wonder who was the sponsor then. The Radio City Music Hall Christmas Spectacular, Life Magazine's 50th anniversary special, and the world premiere of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Requiem for the BBC. Let's keep going. Live special events include the Hong Kong and Macau handover ceremonies and numerous presidential inaugural balls. He has been serving as consultant to the Commission on Presidential Debates and has lit every debate from 2000 to 2020. Architectural lighting design projects include both the interior and exterior lighting of the Silver Star Hotel and Casino in Philadelphia, Mississippi, special architectural feature lighting on board the Holland America ship Rotterdam IV, and the Fountain of Angels in Carthage, Missouri. Moving on to unique projects, the redesign of the architectural lighting of the Senate Chamber and the House Chamber at that place in D.C., the United States Capitol, and the lighting consultation for the restoration and video upgrade for multiple House and Senate hearing rooms. Let's move on to Las Vegas, where he has designed the lighting for Night Dreams at the Dunes Hotel, relighting of the selected scenes of the Folies Bergère, and the 10-year run of Enter the Night at the Stardust. Similar projects include the production of Beyond Belief in Sun City, South Africa, and numerous productions on board various ships for Carnival Cruise Lines. Did I miss anything? I mean, that's a lot.
Well, unfortunately, we ran out of time. Jim, thanks for being on the show today.
That's good.
So, welcome, Jim, to the show again.
Thank you.
You're a very busy man because I know right now you're packing up, getting ready to leave for Dijon, France, for Showlight. That's really exciting, man.
It is. Actually, I'm traveling there tomorrow for the final site survey and final planning with the city of Dijon and the venue and all that. But I'll just be gone a week.
How long have you been involved with Showlight?
Well, Showlight has existed since 1981, every 4 years since 1981 up until COVID. My participation began in 1997 when I was invited to speak there. And I'd never heard of it before. I didn't know anything about it, but it's such a fantastic conference that I started attending each one of them. And then after Edinburgh in 2009, they realized I wasn't going to go away, so they asked me to join the committee on the papers committee, and so I did that up until about 18 months ago when some of the other members of the committee asked me to take on the chairmanship, which is where I am right now.
So why do you want to be chairman?
Well,
for years, first of all, the three of us are in academia, right? And I know you've
Right.
taught, also. But the worst thing you could ever do as a professor, in my opinion, is become chair, because it's mostly putting out fires.
That's exactly what it is. But everybody else took a step back, and I was the
You were the last man standing.
Right. Right. Well, some of this also occurred because we sold the company 4 years ago to the employees, and so I'm semi-retired. I'm not managing a company. I'm just doing shows for selected clients that I haven't fired yet. And so I had more time than the rest of the other senior members of the committee.
It was funny because last week we were talking on the show, and Ellen was saying how excited she was because she's going to Showlight. And, we were originally going to go to Showlight this year, but unfortunately, Stan and I are in different parts of Europe around the same time. So there's no way we could have done it. And it was just crazy. But she said she's excited. I said, why? I mean, it's going to be a lot of great designers going to be there. There's going to be panel discussions, going to be workshops. It looks awesome. She goes, why am I excited? Because I don't have to run it.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So, there you go. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, the activities that you have planned for Showlight?
Sure. First of all, one thing I want to touch on is that we really have a much more increased international participation from before. We've always said that Showlight is an international lighting conference because it takes place in different cities in Europe, but it's always been Anglophone centric, and it's had a very large British presence, and then after that, American presence. But one of the things that we decided as a committee is we really do want to make it more international, and we have 29 speakers from 13 different countries. We also have 5 workshops. Most of those are being run by British or American lighting designers. We also have been testing, and we're going to use an AI simultaneous interpretation platform called Interprify, which simultaneously translates it both to voice and also to text. So you can sit there, listen to somebody speak in their native language, and read the translation on your iPhone or your iPad, which I think we did a test, and I think it's going to work much better than hearing it in the native language and then hearing it 2 words later in English.
Right.
Because you can't focus on that, or I can't. I have a hard time with that. So we're making a real push to go more international. Why is it good that we have speakers from 13 different countries? And here's my outlook on it. As an American lighting designer, I've got a good feel for what people are doing in the States and in England, in the UK. I don't know what lighting designers are doing in France, in Finland, in Spain, all these other countries, and I think it's really fascinating to see what they're doing. Let me see. We have designers from Belgium, UK, Spain, US, Australia, Italy, Finland, Netherlands, France, Denmark, Germany, Greece, Ireland. So we've got a great variety of speakers. They're talking about theater, architainment. We have one technical presentation by Brad Schiller about GDTF, which evidently we all need to know about. Architectural, one speaker on sustainability, opera, concert lighting, film lighting. So we really have a wide variety of topics that the speakers are covering this time.
Can you touch on the student program and that emerging professionals program? Are they linked?
Yeah, we always have had a student program, but it wasn't really sponsored by any specific sponsor, any specific company. And so we would come up with a very small stipend, and then we would ask, we would pick the same number of students as we have exhibitors, and we'd ask the students to work with the exhibitors, would give them free entry to the conference, and give them a small stipend for their travel and living. This time, based on a generous sponsorship from MA Lighting, we are able to give the students free entry to the conference, 4 nights hotel room, and a much more generous travel allowance. And so we have 29 students, I think, from 7 or 8 countries. I'd have to go look at it. And so we're really feeling good about that. And we're going to use some of them in the production. I've identified 2 bilingual French-English students, 1 Canadian, 1 French, and we're going to use them as our stage managers. Because most of the committee is strictly Anglophone, and all the local crew is strictly Francophone. So we're going to use these 2 young ladies as our stage managers, and I'm feeling good about it. I think it's going to be a great experience for them, and a lot of fun for all of us. We have a brand new program. Rick Fisher, which I'm sure you all know, a lighting designer, wanted to do something for emerging professionals, because it's really tough if you're young and just out of school and trying to make it, to be able to afford to come to something like Showlight. So the deadline for emerging professional applications is the end of this month, the end of March. And we've already had 25 applications come in. And I don't know how we're going to decide this, because there are so many super strong resumes that we're seeing. Some from South America, a young lady from Mexico, from Canada, the U.S., of course, the U.K., and a couple other countries in Europe. And again, we are able, and this is Ayrton that sponsored this. This is something Ayrton wanted to do, and it's free admission to the conference, 4 nights hotel, and a travel allowance. So it's a new thing. We're thrilled about it, and we hope it helps a lot of young professionals. And something else, I want to touch on 2 other things. Showlight only exists, well, for a couple reasons. The first one is it's an all-volunteer committee, meaning not only do none of us get paid, but also everybody is doing this in their spare time. And it's easier for me because I'm semi-retired. I'm doing like 4, maybe 5 shows this year. But so many of the other members of the committee are in the prime of their career, and they're still doing a phenomenal amount of work. And I feel so strongly about these people that if we still owned the company, I would be trying to hire them away from their current employers. So that's one reason. The other reason it exists is the sponsors. We just have incredibly generous sponsors. Some of it might be the fact that we haven't done Showlight in 8 years, and so they had all this money saved up to give to us, I like to think. But it's a really big, very generous sponsor program that has allowed us to provide the speakers with a travel allowance and housing and all of that, and the same with the students and the emerging professionals. So a big shout out. I can't even name all the sponsors because we have 22 sponsors amongst our 35 exhibitors.
That's incredible.
Name a major lighting company and they are exhibiting at Showlight.
Oh, so you have a section where they're actually exhibiting their products. Is that correct? So you have a floor.
Yeah, we have a small exhibit hall, and everybody gets a 3-meter by 3-meter booth. Doesn't matter if you are ETC or if you're somebody making widgets in your garage. You get a 3-by-3 booth, and that's all you get. This time, we've initiated something new for people even smaller than that, maybe lighting distributors instead of manufacturers or small manufacturers. we have tables where you can host a table out in the middle of the room, and those have sold out too. So we've sold all of the space that we had. And one of the interesting thing is for our breaks and our meals, we don't actually have a lunchroom that you go to. The idea is you get your food, and we can talk about the French caterer that I've been interviewing later. But you take your food, and then you go out and you sit with an exhibitor in their booth or at their table in the middle of the room. And it's a way to break bread with the exhibitors and the sponsors, and at the same time talk about the business, talk about their products, and all that. So it's a way we've always done it, and it's unique. But it gives the exhibitors much more of a one-on-one contact than they get in a typical trade show.
Mm-hmm. So if someone's listening to the show and they say, I want to go to Showlight, like I know it's coming up in a few weeks, but I want to go, can they still go?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Tickets are on sale, showlight.org, and you just click around. I think on our front page, there'll be a banner at the top that says, purchase tickets here, something like that, and that'll take you to our, we're using a platform called Whova, WHOVA, to sell our tickets, and it'll also be a social media thing that connects everybody that's registered for the conference. It's gonna be a great time. It's in France. We're gonna have great food. Our welcome reception is in a historic reception hall being sponsored by the city of Dijon in the Ducal Palace of Dijon. Our conference dinner is in a secret location that I can't tell you about.
This is like Eyes Wide Shut. Is that what we're talking about here? Not that we need a special invitation.
We're going to put you on a bus and take you to a secret location.
Oh my God.
For the conference dinner.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, but nobody will be disappointed. It's going to be a lot of fun. So hope to see people there.
Last week, Ellen talked about the secret dinner that was like 8 years ago. That was so outrageous. So, I mean, apparently the bar is high here.
It is. Yeah.
But you feel pretty confident because you were talking about this great caterer that you found.
Yes. Yeah. Now, we evaluated 6 or 7 caterers and we decided on one. And when I'm there next week, I've got a long meeting with them to go over the menu for every break, every lunch, the dinner, all that.
Is there entertainment during this dinner?
We're working on that. We have some spatial considerations, shoehorning everything in. So we'll see.
So you can't bring the Cirque team in there and do the acrobats.
That won't work. But we are looking into some local entertainment.
That sounds great. Now I'm feeling really bad that I'm not going. Oh my God! I guess in 8 years or 4 years. I know that. Put us down in 4 years. If we're still alive, we're going, okay? In 4 years, we're there, okay? Hopefully you'll still be running this damn thing and not like saying, oh my God, why did I become chairman? So you are now semi-retired.
Yes.
Sort of like what Stan and I are, but you're still doing a lot of work, and that's fantastic. Do you have any exciting projects you want to talk about?
Tell us about your fascinating work for the U.S. Senate Chamber in Washington, D.C. I bet you've got some stories on that one.
Yeah, it's not really current because we finished it a few years ago, but it led to it was a relight of the Senate Chamber, which hadn't been done since 1950. The last major renovation of the Senate Chamber was 1950 when they upgraded the lighting.
President.
And it hadn't been touched.
Wow.
Actually, I think Truman may have been because I think Eisenhower was elected in 52. So yeah. At any rate, they'd maintained it, but it was all incandescent. The dimming was motorized auto transformers, and so 25 years ago or so, I was contacted about upgrading the television lighting that was in there. And what I realized when I saw the plans is the original television lighting in the Senate Chamber had been done by my friend and mentor at Fiorentino Associates, Dave Clark, in the mid-'80s. And somehow I never knew that he was working on that, even though we were both there at the same time. But it consisted of a quantity of 40 R64s around the perimeter of the balcony, the ceiling, but over the balcony, the gallery. And the senators always complained, the light's in my eyes, and it's too bright, and the glare, and all that. And so I put together a proposal, and they couldn't get funding. So 5 years later, they'd say, let's do this again. So I'd write another proposal, and they wouldn't get funding. So this goes on for 20 years. Finally, they call me up and they say, all right, we really want to do this. And I'm on a conference call with, and this is 5, 6, 7 years ago, with the architect of the Capitol and the engineering department and the Senate recording studio. And they say, well, Mr. Tetlow, we see that you've been working on this for some time. And I said, yeah, I've been working on it for 20 years. And I'm 64 now, so you only got another 20 years to make up your mind. Which, of course, got a laugh out of them because they all retire, government workers around 55 or so. But we actually did it. They came up with the funding. We tore out all of the 300-watt G lamps that were lighting the cove. And what I told them is they kept talking about television lighting. And I said, look, if you redo the architectural lighting so that it is bright enough, because without the TV lighting, it was about 2-foot candles in there. I mean, you almost couldn't use it for egress. So I said, if you improve, the first thing you got to do is improve the architectural lighting, and then you're going to need a lot less TV lighting, and you won't have as much glare and all that. So they finally agreed, because coming from a different budget, to do the architectural lighting. And of course, once we redid the architectural lighting with LED, it was 4 times as bright. We took the TV lighting, and they had been running at 70, 80%. They're now down at 40, 50%. And the combination of the low contrast architectural lighting, most of it coming as cove lighting from the Oculus above, very soft lighting. The television lights are completely inoffensive, and all of a sudden the television lighting isn't a problem, and we don't need to replace it yet. Nice. And so here we are 40 years later, and they still have the same park hands up there.
Do they still have the same stagehand, Spike? The oldest living stagehand back in the auto transformer room?
The auto transformers are gone, because obviously it's all just, DMX dimming. So, and of course that then led to us consulting on the House chamber, but that project got delayed with COVID, and then a little incident that happened there in the Capitol on January 6th. Yeah. And all of a sudden the priorities became repairing the Capitol. And so that completing that has sort of completion date has slipped on that quite a bit.
Yeah, of course.
You've cleverly told us about an older project. What is something that's not super secret that's just incredibly fun right now?
I don't know if fun is the word. I think interesting is. I can't talk about them, not because of secrecy, although if I did know more about them, I still couldn't talk about them. But I've got a couple large shows for Toyota coming up. Their annual dealer announcement show in Vegas, and then that even bigger project in Tokyo at the end of the year. But what I do find interesting is that in April, I'm going to Tokyo for a day trip to do a survey, which I've never done before. I've gone to Europe for basically a day and come back, but I leave. Fortunately, from San Diego, we have a nonstop flight to Tokyo daily. So I leave here on a Monday afternoon. I get there Tuesday night. I survey and have meetings Wednesday, and I come back Thursday in time for lunch.
I only have 4 words to comment after that. Okay. Very important for all our listeners. Whenever you're flying these crazy schedules, we've got 2 of the words are Cathay Pacific, and the other one is Singapore Airlines. Business class.
Yeah, well, I would put Japan Air up there with either one of those.
Japan Air,
I,
you're right. Japan's
yeah,
very
and-
good. Yes.
yeah, and I love those two airlines, but I would put Japan Air, and I would put Korean Air there too.
Oh, I've never flown Korean Air. But
I don't
have
know.
flown to Japan.
Singapore Air, I flew into Hong Kong, and when I landed, my luggage went on to Cambodia. And
Oh.
when I got off the plane, there was a man and a woman who, and I'm barely riding on the wing of the airplane. They stop me and say, "Here is $200 for the night."
Oh yeah, that's going to get you far.
If there's any inconvenience, we will, of course, have your luggage to you by 8 a.m. in the morning. It was $200 to go out and buy a toothbrush.
I was doing a show in Venice, and British Air lost my luggage. And matter of fact, it was on its way to Australia. I had nothing. I just had my computer bag with me, and it was really cold. And they said, just buy whatever you want. I said, okay. Now, shopping in Venice is not cheap, let me tell you.
No.
So underwear is like back at the time, and this was about 10, 15 years ago, that was like $40 for a pair of underwear. So anyway, back to Jim. So Stan, you had something that you wanted to talk about with Jim, right?
I hear you've seen some interesting productions lately and you have some opinions on brightness. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, okay. It's. I don't know if I have an opinion. I have an observation, and I think it's a good topic for discussion. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I'm still trying to form my opinion on it. I was in New York last week, and I saw two shows. I saw Othello, which is lit by Natasha Katz, and I saw Gypsy, lit by Jules and Peggy. And both of them were beautifully lit. But what struck me was just how bright some of the scenes were, especially in Gypsy, like nuclear bright. And of course, there's other dramatically lit scenes, but it was just that. And so when I see this bright scene, I turn around and I look up, and it looks like there's 12 automated lights in white zinging in there. And I thought a good topic, and of course the reason that this is occurring now is because we can, and we couldn't before, right?
Right.
And so I think it's a good, interesting topic. Will it ever be bright enough, or is this just going to continue?
I have my question for you. So, do you think your reaction was just the visual piece of this is really, really bright relative to what my expectations might have been, or it's really bright for this particular scene?
Both.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So is the range? Are you suggesting perhaps that what we think of as a range of brightness for indoor lighting, because of solid state lighting and maybe better computers designing optics and so on, that we now have we went from a range like this to a range like this, and we have to adjust to that because, daylight's pretty damn bright. But if you go out in daylight after a snowstorm, you get snow. What is it called? Snow
blindness. Yeah.
Snow blindness. Yeah.
Is there a place where you sort of exceed what the sensory system really wants to tolerate?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I don't have the answer to that, but
Right.
but I will say this can only occur in theater or live events because you can't do this range of brightness in television.
Because the
cameras-
camera has limitations.
Yeah.
Right.
You exceed the contrast ratio.
Right.
So this can only occur in live non-televised events, which is theater for the most part these days.
Yeah, concerts, things like that. Yeah, we've been talking about this on and off on the show over the past 2 years. And it was funny because we had 4 of the resident lighting directors of the top opera companies in the United States on, and we were all talking about this as a tendency in opera, of all places. Because opera is always like, oh, it's so dark, they call lighting designers the Prince of Darkness and things like that, crazy stuff. But it's getting brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And I've said this before in the show, but it's my theory that it's the zeitgeist, combination of things. Zeitgeist that people want things brighter, and also that's what they're used to seeing, because the the equipment's better. They're going to see a concert, like they can go see Taylor Swift, and you see these gigantic video screens everywhere that are super bright. And then she's going to have to be bright, so she's got to be brighter than the video screens. And more personal is the fact that we're watching television screens that are brighter.
Yes.
LED and OLED, all that stuff, it's all brighter, super brighter. And every year it's got to be even brighter. The screens have to be brighter, 20% brighter than last year, 30% brighter than the year before. Things like that, just so that they could sell these crazy sets. And people say, it's brighter, it must be better. Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, and working with the LED displays is a whole nother topic. There weren't any LED displays in either one of these shows, but I think it's another great topic for discussion, because in television, you turn your video wall down to 10%, 7%, something like that, and so you can still light at a reasonably low level, and you can see beams in the air, and you can see so it's all balanced for the camera. In the corporate world, they just like in the concert world, the producers like to see a bright LED display, and so you have to light up to match that. When we first started using video walls for corporate productions, we hadn't really gotten into how much you had to dim them and all that, so we were ending up lighting up to it. And so we're lighting up there at 150, 200-foot candles, because that's what you have to be when the white graphic comes on.
The concert world, they say if you have to dim it, you pick the wrong light.
Yeah.
I have a thought as you were this is not a question, but just a rhetorical comment. Listening to you speak about this, both David and Jim, on these ideas. I have a colleague who's an acoustician who years ago said to me, you should do for lighting what acoustical scientists did for acoustics. Like, they studied buildings, they studied concert halls, they studied Greek theaters, and they knew what decibel levels created certain qualities. They qualified quantity. And he said, don't you have something like that in lighting? And I said, well, there are certain municipal codes and there are certain light levels in architecture that you need to meet, but I don't think anybody's ever done that. So, for example, today I was at a restaurant and I get really annoyed about the music and the sound. And I take a measurement and we're at 75 dBs at the table. And so I guess what I'm saying is we don't really have a metric in lighting, other than the guidelines we get from IES, which are sort of based on human interaction, and it's very touchy-feely. But where in acoustics, they really have a science. Like, if you want a certain NC criteria for different rooms, there's a different NC criteria. They know how to meet it. They know how to measure it. They know how to get it. I'm not sure we have that. And I wonder, I'm just pondering out loud, will we need something like that? Because now the range is, if you're at 120 decibels, you're breaking the law, right? Or if you're in a concert scenario, you've got a limitation. So I'm just wondering if maybe we have to mature in the same way that acoustics matured.
It's a thought. I think I have to go back to the fact that things are so much brighter now because we can.
Yeah, sure. Or louder. I mean,
And certainly the farther away the audience is, or a member of the audience is from the stage, the brighter it needs to be. And my rule of thumb was always, if you're 100 feet away, it needed 100-foot candles on stage to look properly lit and bright. And if you're even farther away, it had to be brighter. And that was achievable. But now I think you could be 800 feet away and they'd be able to put enough light on stage.
How did you come up with that metric? Was that experiential that you sort of?
Yeah, somebody at Ferentino in the 80s said that to me, and I said, okay. And so I played with it. I was doing something at like the Atlantic City Convention Center on the boardwalk there, where you're 300 feet away, or something. And I said, oh, this looks bright enough. And I went down on stage. I measured it, and it was like 120, 150-foot candles, because it was all my lights turned on in one place. That's all I could get.
Yeah. You make an interesting point, because like detail, the more lights you have, the more easy you can discern detail, on an object. But yeah, it's sort of like the distance factor is absolutely is part of the equation.
But the distance factor is becoming less and less of an issue because there's video screens everywhere.
Right.
So what sort of a collaboration do you have with the video designer about this, and director and producer, right? All these people are involved, because I have a feeling that some of this brightness is coming from the producer saying, you got to make it bright.
Oh, it is.
You know?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
the director's under that pressure.
Yeah, yeah. And there have, when we first started using video walls, producer would come to me and say the client's complaining, the executive, he says the lights are too bright. And I said, well, the only reason the lights are bright is because we're balancing the video wall.
Mm-hmm.
You dim down the video wall, we'll take the lights down commensurately. And we could be at 25% of this lighting level, but we're just trying to balance to the video. And sometimes they do that, or sometimes they say, well, no, we really want the video to be vibrant. And
are you talking about entertainment? You talking about like industrials and things like
yeah,
that? Industrials,
yeah,
right?
corporate shows.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Because with corporate shows, wouldn't they have IMAGs all over the place where people can see, the balance?
On both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really not that important that the stage itself be so damn bright, right?
Well, we're essentially in a video environment because the camera shots of executive or performers on stage have to be balanced to the LED background. And I did this big McDonald's show in Barcelona a year ago, March, and it was a very large LED wall, about 400 feet long, about 40 feet wide. And I was really nervous because a lot of the graphics were McDonald's yellow, McDonald's orange, McDonald's red. And I was really concerned about how this was going to read on the executives. And we had screens overhead with the video and all that. And we went through a whole calibration test with video. We had a time block of like 4 hours to set levels of the LED floor and establish what spotlight levels, because I'm using primarily automated spotlights, robotics, what the level of spotlights would be. And we set an aperture for the camera, and we just did it very logically, and everything after that, everything just fell into place.
That's really interesting. I just think that, if you're doing like people used to call it legitimate theater. I don't know what's illegitimate. I don't know what illegitimate is anymore. And when you're doing, theater like that, like the Othello that you saw and Gypsy, it's live lighting. And depending on how large that theater is, obviously your lighting levels are going to shift a bit. But when it gets to a point where they're just asking for intensity for the sake of making it more interesting or keeping the audience awake, like Stan talks about loud sound and loud sound cues and music, a lot of it probably is because the show's damn boring. Now, I know it wasn't Gypsy. I'm sure that was an incredible show, and same thing with Othello. But I think people are just moving toward that. Like I said earlier, it's a zeitgeist. And I think producers get nervous. We're spending $300,000 on this lighting package or more. Let's get every lumen out of it that we can. I mean, really, it's like, can you imagine if a producer came over and looked behind you and was looking at your levels and says, why is that only at 20%?
I paid for 100.
I'm paying a lot of money. You want that light on. Right?
Could you get a light that's less expensive and it would be like 80% instead of 20%? Has that ever happened to you, Jim?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
I've got a great. Now, you mentioned this that the hotel and casino we did in Mississippi. We had automated searchlights on the rooftop, and we had like a dozen of them, and we programmed a show. And I'm explaining to the client, I said, okay, now we start with 2 lights, and we add another and another, and it's a 10-minute show or something like that, and we build to the finale. And he says, well. Why do you just start with 1 or 2? And I said, so we have someplace to build. He says, I don't care about building. Just I want them all going all the time. So that's exactly it, right?
Oh my God.
So we went to our final cue, and that became our first cue, and we just let it
never heard
run.
a symphony where the music goes up and down. It's just
Right.
turn it up to full. That's all I want.
Yeah.
Like,
So now you're semi-retired again, because we're semi-retired. It seems to me that Stan and I are becoming much more, more like Larry David. We're becoming much more, not flippant, just, everything's bothering us.
curmudgeons. We're
Curmudgeons. We're curmudgeons. Right, exactly. Have you become a curmudgeon yet, Jim, or are you still in that transition phase?
I'm a curmudgeon when somebody calls me to do a job. I get really pissed off that they want me to work. Other than the ones I've committed to. I've committed to some for the next couple of years, and we'll do that. But I say that jokingly because it's nice to be wanted and all that. But I have to say that show light is keeping me so busy that I haven't really had time to be curmudgeonly. And my wife said, the reason you like doing show light is, for 30 years, we owned our own firm. And she said, you're used to being the boss, and now you get to be the boss again. So,
I bet you're a good boss. I bet you're a really good boss, actually.
Try to be. Part of it is taking care of your team.
Exactly.
That's what it's about.
And you talk about team, and you talk about saying no. I say no to everybody unless it's like 2 or 3 good friends of mine who I've known most of my life, professional life, who are directors, who just want to work with me and I want to work with them. You can't say no to people like that. And that's the thing. And I think that's a beautiful thing in the theater because it's such a collaborative art form. You make friends, you develop these beautiful friendships, your lifelong friendships. You don't want them to end.
Right. Exactly.
So you're going to do a show here or there. Why not? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I say.
No, I agree with that completely.
All right. Well, I think we've run out of time. I think that's it.
53 minutes.
That went fast. It didn't hurt a bit.
So, Jim, thank you so much for being on this show today. It's so good to see you. And I'm very disappointed that I'm not going on. I'm disappointed in myself. But, it's just things that aren't working. But we will be coming in 4 years. I promise you that.
Well, let's plan on doing Light Talk from Show Light.
We could resurrect Light Talk from the grave in 4 years.
Where's it going to be in 4 years? Are you still going to be?
We don't
friends?
know. It's always in a different city, different country.
I would like to suggest the Faroe Island.
Yes, the Faroe Islands. The Faroe Islands would be a great place. They don't have a very good port, but, you could parachute in. Yeah. Parachute in by or I hear our 51st state may have an opening. So maybe Toronto or Greenland.
Or Panama.
Yeah, we might all be together in Guantanamo.
Hey, we could do a prison show from Guantanamo. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tell us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you decide to litigate, the Snoop Group with the legal team of Watson, Leitner, and Beam will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Gainesville, Long Beach, La Jolla, and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you more of our casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So once again, thank you very much, Jim, for being here. It's good to see you, and have safe travels over to Dijon. We'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Sayonara.